What is going on, YouTube? Welcome back to Nola's Garage. I'm Gartrell, and if you're new to the channel, make sure you take the time to subscribe and follow us on IG at NLG001. Today, we're going to be addressing what you just saw in the beginning of this video, which is the slow start on a Porsche 911. The reason for this is for a few reasons, but can cause things like this. It can cause flickering on the DRL similar to that. Basically, what's happening is there's a cable that draws power from your battery all the way back to the alternator and the starter motor in the rear of the car. That cable fails. So what we're going to do is change that cable and also change the starter motor today. And that should remedy this car from having voltage issues, which cause my Morimoto LED headlights to flicker like this because they base off of voltage at startup. And if the voltage is incorrect at startup, it's not going to work properly. So we're going to be taking out the old cable and replacing it with a new one from Porsche. We're also going to be replacing the starter motor, which is about maybe $300 plus a core charge from FCP Euro. All of the parts in the description below, and you can buy them and follow along on how we're going to be installing them today. This is something I've been wanting to fix for quite a while. Obviously, turning these on, seeing them all nice and pretty, and then having them flicker while I'm driving is obviously not the desired result. So changing this should be able to alleviate this problem and also help with starting up a lot quicker and potentially not having the issue of non-start if the voltage gets to a point where it's too bad and we're unable to start the car. I don't think that'll ever be an issue. I'm hoping that this will be the fix, and I'll let you know by the end of this video if it does. It's never a dull moment at Empire Auto Works. Yeah, guards red. Telling you, it's a gorgeous manual GT3. Sheesh. This thing just keeps getting me more and more excited to get one, guys. All right, let's get to work on this stuff, though. So first thing we gotta do is remove the air box. It's pretty simple. All you have to do is pull up on this. Then we're gonna remove the 10 millimeter, sorry, not the 10 millimeter bolt, the 8 millimeter clamp that's holding the throttle body to the air box, and then you can just gently unplug the MAF and lift up on the air box and remove it. Once it's removed, we're going to do the plug for the throttle body. We're going to do the 4 bolts connecting the throttle body to the plenum and the 1 bolt that's here holding the throttle body in place on the tensioner pulley. And that's about it. And then we'll get to the plenum and ultimately to the starter motor. So we got the throttle body out, very easy. 4 bolts, Torx, E10s that hold this on, and again that 10 millimeter nut that's holding it onto the pulley here, and then it's off. Pretty simple. We want to put this in a nice safe place. This is okay for now. So the next thing we're going to have to do is remove this clamp.
Stop. If you're about to perform this install, you're going to want to listen to what I have to say. This hose that I just pointed to is actually connected to another hose. That hose is connected to a plastic piece that connects to your coolant system. It will disintegrate. These are 20-year-old cars. Go down to FCP Euro and buy this piece here on the screen before attempting this install. Otherwise, you could be left with a disaster, kind of like how I was, where coolant spewed all over my engine bay. And you don't want that. So please have this piece on hand and ready to install before you begin this install. Thanks.
From the plenum. And then there's 2 hose clamps, one on each side of the plenum holding this in place. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to loosen one side first so that we can snap this loose. It's been in here for God knows how long. And then we're going to tighten it again, and then we're going to loosen the other side and then snap it loose from that perspective. This way we can get it to come off pretty easily, and then we'll have access to the starter motor. All right, so we ran into actually a big / minor issue. Do you see this hose that's now disconnected completely? Let me turn up the ISO a little bit. All right, you see this hose that's disconnected? This should not be disconnected. And basically what happened is this bracket here actually broke the little piece inside the hose, and coolant came spewing out, which is why my bumper, which you cannot see right now, is covered in coolant, as well as the rest of the engine compartment. So this was connected here to the throttle body, and I had to press and pull out in order to get this loose. And this was also in this little bracket here, which is why this old 80,000 mile, 20-year-old plastic is what broke and allowed coolant to come spewing out of the engine. So now we have to wait for this piece to come in order to fix it. But we're gonna continue to go ahead and replace the starter motor up top and basically button up the car to the point where when this arrives, all we'll have to do is reattach it and fill the car up with coolant. I would say if you're doing this job yourself, make sure that you buy that clip, which I'll drop in the description below. So if this does happen to you, you won't be stuck. You'll be able to replace it same day, fill it up with coolant, and be on your way. But for me, I'm just gonna have to deal with it. When we get that piece in the mail, we'll swap it out. We might try and do a quick fix, and find like a T-fitting somewhere at like a hardware store or a parts store so that we can kind of, make shifts so that I can get home today. But unfortunately, it doesn't look like it's gonna be the case. So we're gonna finish the car up so that when we get that piece in, it'll be a quick fix. Things happen when you're working on cars. Hey, you just have to be prepared to fix them. All right, so basically, with that piece broken, we went to Lowe's. We found a straight barb that would actually bridge the gap between the two coolant hoses. And we ordered an aluminum piece, again, part in the description below, so that we can, basically get the car running for today and then replace it with the proper part later. So the barb is basically just gonna, bridge the gap between the coolant hose that runs down under here and this coolant hose. And then we're gonna secure it as best we can for the time being until we get that part that's gonna come in on Tuesday. Then, instead of wasting time just sitting here, we said, let's actually get the starter out and get the cable changed. So in order to do that, we removed the tuning pipe, which is not the plenum that sits at the first intake part, but the second one. It's the same exact process. You need to unscrew the two clamps that'll be sitting on each of the couplers, and then this piece will come out. This is the tuning pipe. We're gonna clean this up. And basically there's a vacuum hose here that you can disconnect. We decided to just move it out the way because it was giving us a little bit of issue. We might remove it later just to give a little bit more space. It's out of the way and not obstructing anything that we have to do with the starter. So the starter is right there, as you can see. You take the 13mm bolt off the front, which is this large gauge cable that we're gonna be changing, and you take this 10mm nut off. Again, make sure that your battery is disconnected before starting this process. Then you can reach back and get an E14 and remove the E14 bolt that goes just over yonder. I don't know if you can see that very well, but there's an E14 bolt back there, and there'll be an E14 bolt on the opposite side as well. You'll need to remove both. The one that's over on the left-hand side is pretty hidden, which is why we need to take off that tuning pipe. With the tuning pipe out of the way, we're gonna use a series of extensions to go down and into the left-hand side and disconnect that second bolt on the starter. That will release the starter, and with the starter out, we can make way with the rest of the project, which is removing the cable off of the back of the alternator. You'll need some space, so with the starter out, you'll have enough space to get to that bolt. And then we'll start removing the actual cable with the car on the lift. We'll feed up the new cable, reconnect everything, and that should be done. We'll also try to do some cleanup on the engine bay. As you can see, coolant hose spewed coolant everywhere, so it sucks, but it's part of doing these kinds of modifications to your car. It's not even a modification, it's more of a repair. But ultimately, when this is done, the car should start up very quick, and it should transfer the proper amount of voltage from the battery to the alternator and to the starter, giving you less problems with the car starting. So with that being said, this is a lesson to come prepared for things to break. Maybe do a little more research on things that could break. I don't think anyone really documented, but this piece is really important and you should get it. Again, down in the description below. Let me show you the actual part that failed. It looks like this, but something's missing here, right? It's the two barbs. One barb should be sticking up above here and the other barb sticking below here. Both of them broke when we were removing the pipes. Both broke when we were removing the coolant hoses. It's live. So basically, You want one friend with a long extension who's gonna feed it through just over the alternator down, while somebody reaches over the starter to feel the bolt that's on the left-hand side of the starter. Once you feel that it's on, you're gonna have your friend crack that bolt and then slowly back it out so that you have your finger on the bolt to be able to catch it unless it falls. You don't want this to fall into the engine bay, you will not find it. And that's about it. Once you have those two bolts out, the 13 mil and the 10 mil off of the starter, then you can remove the starter motor and put the new one in. And if you're replacing the cable, you'll notice that there's a wire on the back of the alternator that also needs to come out. With the starter motor out, you'll have more clearance to reach around, send a extension through to release that bolt off of the back of the alternator. And then you'll have the cable free and you can remove it from the underbody. You can remove it from the underbody of the car and feed up the new one. And we'll get to that in just a few minutes. You're good. No one's coming. You're good. Yeah. Jeez. Boys, I know y'all hear that. That's some good stopping power. How's it feel?
Feels good.
Good?
Way better than before.
Nice.
You already took the coating off the rotors too. Perfect. You already took the coating off the rotors. Perfect. That shit was bad now.
You're good. $13mm bolt to remove this cable, and then there's 10mm bolts up there, 2 of them that you remove in order to release this cable from the car. Once that's done, you can remove the cable from the car and then feed the other one back up to the transmission tunnel, put those 3 bolts in, the 2 10mm and the 1 13mm, and then drop the car down, or if you're on the ground, then you'll feed up the rest of the wire, install the alternator first with the plugs and everything put back in, and the starter last. Otherwise, you will not have enough clearance to be able to fit your alternator back in properly. Let's just get it done.
In here, what I would start by doing is taking off the cable off the starter. I'll take the cable off the starter. It'll give you slack on the alternator. Pull it back, remove it, and you'll get a straight shot. If you're not able to reach your hand over this way to get to it, see my here?
Yep.
It'd be easy to do that, and then you get a straight shot.
So basically, just to recap everything he said, this whole job starts with removing the plenums, and then you're forced with getting to that bolt. That is the second bolt. As you can see clearly, this is the first bolt that you'd be able to remove once removing the plenums on the starter. The second one is down there, if you can see that. Now, the alternator sits here normally, right? So, let me back out. The alternator sits here normally. So with the alternator out, you actually have a straight shot at that second bolt for the starter. So if you wanted to start this job all over again, the easiest way is to disconnect the starter motor cables, undo that one bolt, make sure the alternator's out, and then you'll have a straight shot at that second bolt without having too much issue. Now that we have the new cable in, all we're doing is literally reversing the process. We're going to connect this to the starter. We're going to hook up the starter to the other 2 wires. This is going to go to the back of our alternator.
Alternator first, yeah.
And we're going to put the alternator in first, and then we're going to tighten up everything else on the starter motor. Once we're done with that, we can reverse the process of adding the intake plenum as well as the throttle body, and then we can finish this job up.
All right, so basically everything is back together. If you want to understand how exactly any part of this process works, reach out to me. But basically, in order to reach the second bolt on your starter motor, remove your alternator first. You're gonna have a cable on the back of your alternator that you're gonna remove to give you slack, and then you'll have a straight shot to the second bolt on the starter. Once you remove all of the bolts off of the starter motor and the alternator, and unclipped and remove the bolts on the bottom of the car, which I showed you earlier, you'll be able to remove the old cable, feed up the new cable, and then you're going to want to install your new starter, install your alternator, and then connect all of the cables. Once that's done, you can basically do the rest of the steps in reverse, which is the tuning pipe in the rear, the plenum in the front, the throttle body, and then the airbox. And like I said, I recommend, because we kind of just found a solution in the short term, getting the aluminum version of this bracket here, which holds your coolant pipe to the block. Ours broke. We found a brass fitting that fit the diameter of the original barbs, and once we've installed that, we kind of secured that safely so that it won't come in contact with your belt. So now we're going to start the car off for the first time. We're going to need to put some coolant in because coolant shot out everywhere, and hopefully it runs and starts up quickly with no problems, because that would be the ultimate fix. All right, go ahead. Alright, so car's running perfectly. Not getting any more flickering from the lights, because the voltage that's getting passed from the battery to the alternator on startup is exactly what it needs. I would almost dare to say that they even look brighter for some reason. Could be wrong, but it's possible. And what I'm going to do before we conclude is just show you the car starting up one more time. I apologize if any water gets on the lens, but I just want to show you how it starts up very quickly. You can tell just from the beginning of the video to currently how quickly it starts up. As you can tell, the car is starting up way quicker, even sounds stronger. So that is due to that cable as well as the new starter motor. So I couldn't be more grateful to Empire Auto Works for helping me getting this done. I definitely wouldn't have been able to do this that easily on the ground. I get no more flickering from the DRLs on the car anymore, which was also the intended outcome. And yeah, that's about it, guys. So if you have any questions on how to get this done, reach out to me. If you want someone who knows how to do this on your 997, go to Empire Auto Works. Now that he's done this for the first time, he's gonna have no problem doing it a second, third, fourth, or fifth time. His information is in the description below. Remember the steps that we talked about. The order on which you need to remove your starter and your alternator. And remember to get the aluminum fitting for your coolant pipe, because the one on the 2007s might be rotted out at this point. It's almost 20 years old. As you can see, mine actually cracked, and so definitely don't start this job on your own if you don't have that piece. If it breaks, you will be stuck if you don't have a fitting, or if it's your only car, or you're not near a hardware store or anything like that, you could be stranded. Anyway, that's enough jabbering. Thank you for watching the video. Hope you subscribe. If you stayed this long, please do like this video, and see you in the next one.